Welcome to the Fantasy Football Garage. I'm Chris. My friends call me the Candyman, and you already know what time it is. Tonight, we're drafting best ball teams on Underdog. We're gonna do PGA season-long best ball tonight, and I'm pretty excited because a new tournament dropped today. It's the Pat Mayo Classic, a $150 buy-in, 216 person tournament, a very small field tournament. Dang, it looks pretty fun, looks pretty interesting. Let's see if we can fill one of these lobbies tonight, maybe draft one of those. There's no rake. I also have a bunch of slow draft picks to make. I mean, one of these slow drafts is on the clock right now with 2 minutes left. I got about a dozen of those to get through. So we'll do some slow drafts, we'll do some fast drafts, we'll talk strategy, PGA, season-long best balls here. Without further ado, let's hit the intro. We'll get into it. We'll throw up the old football intro. But if you're new to the channel or if you're watching this in the future, make sure you're subscribed. I've got a goal to hit 1,000 subs before the start of the next NFL season. So this whole summer, we're going to be drafting PGA weeklies, talking one and dones, the Albatross, the Scramble, all of that, plus football. Of course, the big board's coming out soon. Everyone's talking about PGA. Everyone's talking about NFL playoff best ball as well. And we're going to get into all of that. So make sure you like the stream, jump in the chat, say what's up. I'm going to hit the intro. We have a pick to make in 1 minute and 30 seconds. So let's get right into it.
But overall, it's like the guy can ball. Like, actions speak louder than words.
All right, I've got this team here. It's a scramble. It's a slow draft. Started off with Siwoo Kim. Oh, come on now. There we go. Siwoo Kim, McIntyre, Pendrith, Corey Connors, Nico Echeverria. I'm on the clock with my 6th pick. You guys already know who I'm taking. I'm taking Michael Thorbjornsen. One of my, he's getting drafted pretty much in every draft, but he's one of my up-and-coming favorite clicks. A player I want to get more exposure to. I wasn't drafting him a whole ton until recently, but now I'm clicking him in the 6th round a lot. And if I get him in the 7th, even better. So that is a quick selection there. We've got my schedule set up here. He helps us fill out the COG. He helps for the American Express. These are the events he played last year. He might even play the Sony. We don't know yet for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a player who's going to play his way into some of these signature events before too long. A top 2 finish in the early segment. Maybe he's starting to play in the API or the Heritage, Miami, the Truist. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the signature events as the season goes on and is playing more events than he did last year, of course. So Michael Thorbjornsen can bomb it off the tee box, and not a bad putter either, like we saw on Friday night in his TGL debut. He sunk 3-4 putts from 10 feet plus on that crazy articulating green they have. So I'm pretty excited about that pick. Make that one there. We go back to my current drafts. We've got a bunch to make. Let's go ahead and make this pick here. It's a big scramble, a $50 draft, and there's 15 minutes left. So we should make this one before we jump into a fast draft. And then we'll have some more slow drafts to pick from as we wait for potentially for the fast draft to fill up. Let me go ahead and say what up to everyone in the chat here. Thanks for being here tonight, guys. Happy Monday. Happy New Year. Hope you're doing well and getting some nice PGA drafts in. I mean, we've only got just about a little over a week to go. So it's crunch time. I feel like I'm warmed up. I'm in the zone. I'm feeling it tonight. I'm ready to rip some drafts. I feel like I'm in the matrix. I'm seeing the matrix, and I can make all the right picks. My teams, I've been drafting since this tournament opened on November 26th. Been following the ADPs, getting different teams at different points in the draft, and it's interesting to see because I feel like my exposures have changed significantly at different periods week to week in this draft, in this scramble. We got Jeff T in here, aka Money Ain't a Thing. Appreciate you, brother. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. I did have to rescheduled the stream. Saturday night, or was it Sunday night? I think was it Saturday night? No, it was Sunday night. I was watching some NFL football and it put me to sleep. So I fell asleep before I could go live on the stream. It was that, which matchup was that? It was the 49ers game. Put me right to sleep. So then I had to reschedule the stream. Fell asleep. We got Retail Ripper in here. What's up, brother? Good to see you. He says he already drafted the winner, but he's here for some great content. Appreciate the kind words. Good luck, my friend. We'll see you in the finals. We got TJ in here. Shout out to the man. Hope you're doing well. Happy Monday. Good to see you. And yeah, we got Darren in here. What's up, Darren? How we doing? Hanging out with Darren last night on Mike's stream, Mike's Money Picks. Big fan of his content. We did a couple live drafts together last night. We talked some ball. So make sure you're subscribed to Mike at Mike's Money Picks. Make sure you check out his content as well. He does a ton of fantasy betting and DFS content, not only for PGA, but for college football, for NFL football. And he's a great guy. So make sure you check him out as well. Good to see you, Darren. I know. I have been studying up for the COG, trying to make sure I understand which players are going to be playing it in 2026. A lot of these guys who played it in 2025, I don't think they're going back there. If you saw, Pat Mayo had Michael Kim on his podcast within the last week, and he published it. It came out today across all podcast networks. I listened to that on my commute this morning, and what I learned is Michael Kim is going to play the essentially all of the first events in the first segment except for the Cognizant. So he's going to go 6 straight, the Sony through the Genesis. But he said he doesn't expect to play the Cognizant this year, even though he played it last year. That's the one he's going to take a break on. So that's a little bit of an update of information for us to account for. But what it reminds me is that there are a number of golfers whose status has changed going into 2026. They were not previously qualified maybe for the signature events in 2025. Now going into 2026, they're fully qualified for the Siggies, and they might skip the Cognizant. They might be skipping, the CJ Cup or the Charles Schwab or the, certain other events like maybe the Canadian, who knows, maybe the Valero. They're kind of in between some of these majors, some of these signature events. So what I am doing is now and I've seen a number of other people do this too. You have to discount your projections for who's playing in the Cognizant depending on if they're in these signature events or not. So if I'm drafting a signature event golfer and they played in the Cognizant last year, as long as their status was also a signature event golfer last year, I'm a little bit more comfortable assuming they will play the COG again. But if their status has changed, I'm putting a question mark there. And so I want to make sure I've got at least 8 golfers who are playing the Cognizant based on our projected schedules, assuming that 1 or 2 might not. And I would hate to show up in the 7th week of the season at the Cognizant and not have 6 golfers to hit my lineups, because you'd fall behind. It's somewhat of a birdie fest. We'll go to the schedule. Some of last year's data. It's not the highest scoring event. I mean, the average score for a top 25 golfer there over the last couple of years has been about 12 under, about 18 birdies total across 4 rounds. And that's about middle of the pack across the entire schedule for 2026. The American Express, on the other hand, is the second highest ranked birdie fest among all of the tournaments going to be played this year, second only to essentially it's the top. I mean, essentially it's the top one with the new schedule. It's that or the John Deere, 2 of the bigger birdie fests. And now that we have the Rocket is gone, so the Mexico is gone. That's another one that was a big birdie fest. 25.5 birdies across the tournament. The average score of like a top 25, or maybe it was a top 10 golfer, it's like 23 under or some of the scores. So this is a tournament you want a lot of guys in the American Express. The Cognizant is one you just don't want to miss out on. It's at the end of the first leg, and it comes after the two signature events at Pebble Beach and Riviera Country Club, which last year was at Torrey Pines, but typically the Genesis is at Riviera. It will be there again this year, and so those are not. I mean, they're tougher. They're tougher fields. They're tougher events, tougher golf courses, less birdies to go around. So here we are on the clock. It's a this is a big scramble. It's a Cam Young, JJ Spawn, ending it with Matt McCarty was the last pick. I have Thor Bjornsson on this one as well. And we have 2 picks to make here. So let's load this one up. Cam Young, Spawn, and McCarty. Go here to my live. I've saved this one here. I can load it into my projected schedule. So what am I missing? I need some more farmers, but that's not really a big issue. That'll come along. Same thing with Valspar and Houston. I'm not worried. I've color-coded this. The ones that are popping out in green are the birdie fests, are the ones you want to have multiple players in, most certainly. The lines here is breaking up each of the advancement weeks, the segments, the 4 legs of this tournament. The majors, of course, are bolded in blue, and they're typically kind of lower scoring events. The Travelers, the John Deere, the Scottish are the events you're going to want to have a lot of players in to have a chance to win it when it counts the most in the finals of this tournament. And you don't want to skip out on the Canadian either, because it kind of like the CJ Cup, the Canadian, the Cognizant, those are just some events you might have a hard time filling if you're not being very intentional with the players that you're drafting. So as I'm looking at this, what I want to fill out here, I have 2 picks. I kind of want to lean into going with like a Chris Gotterup. I think that's a safe pick. He's slated to either be qualified for or have played every event in 2025. So he's a guy whose status has changed. I don't think he plays every single open event. I don't know if he plays the Cognizant this year, some of these other ones that he played last year when he didn't have signature event status, but I still think I like his profile for this format as an overall kind of mid-round pick. I've been clicking a lot of Gotterup. He played a lot of rounds last year, 87th percentile in rounds played is what I'm showing this data here. He kind of middle of the pack for making cuts, which is a little bit of a drawback and maybe something I need to be more critical of. But then his top 10s, he's 72nd percentile in making top 10s, and he's 73rd percentile in birdies per round. So this is, I think, a pretty quality profile. The thing that gives me some pause, though, is the cuts, the cuts made. So then I look at another player available, Akshay Bhatia. And maybe I go with Bhatia. He also had signature event status last year, and so it's a little bit more clear that he's going to be playing a similar schedule going forward. He's in the 70th percentile across the board for rounds played, cuts made, and top 10s. Pretty predictable. Let's see. I'm probably going to take one of these guys, but not both. Let's see how Bhatia factors in here. So he's not playing the Farmers, but I think we can cover that later on. Not in Valspar. Houston doesn't cover the CJ Cup or the Canadian or the John Deere or the Scottish. So only having 3 picks left after Bhatia, I feel like it's a little bit challenging to fill out the roster if I did take him. So I don't know if he's a perfect fit for this team. I'm more inclined to pick a guy like Gotterup that maybe he doesn't play all of these events, but at least we have some course history that he potentially can. And so I still need to fill out my CJ Cup, my John Deere, and some more guys for the Scottish. But I feel like Gotterup just gives me a little bit more event coverage than I would expect Bhatia to play. We got Dale in the house. What's up, Dale? That's the magic, the puzzle piece. We got to get it all figured out. We got Bendels in the chat. What's up, my buddy? Me and Bendels were behind the scenes talking some ball, planning out our Ballsy Season 2, some of our NFL best ball content that's coming out real soon. So stay tuned for that as well. Yeah, it is so true that it's different this year, and that just makes me wanna draft more players who are potentially gonna play it to have a buffer, kind of as we've talked about there. I think this is also a good point. You wanna sprinkle in some guys who are, like, not so high in the FedEx Cup ranks. This is the case to scroll down for some of these last round picks, which is exactly what we're looking at right now. I'm trying to think of some scroll down guys that would fit perfectly here too. I think there's some fades. It's guys who are in the signature events but don't play a whole lot of events. Ones that come to mind quickly for me, I'm a slight fade on Victor Hovland. I'm a slight fade on Colin Morikawa. I've been fading a lot of the guys who are international players who might not fully commit to the PGA events and might play some DP World Tour events like they previously have. I really like Rasmus Højgaard, but I don't think this is the right format for him necessarily. Slight fade to Rory and to Fleetwood. I think you got to push those guys towards the fourth round. But if you take them in the third round, you just need to build out your team strategically around them to make sure you can compensate for the lack of events they're going to play. So I went ahead and took Goddard up with the first pick here. Gives us some more time on the clock, but we'll go ahead and make this next pick as well. Thinking through how do I want to fill out this schedule because, like I said, I need to make sure with my next three picks, I'm hammering the CJ Cup, the John Deere, and the Scottish. Eric is cold. Talking about Eric Cole having a pretty tough season last year. We'll go into some of the data on Eric Cole, who does play a lot of events, but had some pretty bad outcomes. 99th percentile for rounds played on the PGA Tour in 2025. 62nd percentile in cuts made, 65th percentile in top tens, 71st percentile in birdies per round. Honestly, still not the worst profile. And I think he is going to continue to be a grinder who has to fight his way into signature events or even competing in any of the majors, which I don't think he's qualified for any of them currently. So I've drafted some Cole. I'm not afraid to click Cole, but I do know that from a real golf perspective, he's been pretty disappointing and seems like just another guy you might be able to replace with a scroll down pick who maybe has some more upside. I'm going to look here at Keith Mitchell. Yeah, Keith Mitchell, I'm not projecting him to play the CJ Cup, and so he doesn't fully kind of give me what I need here. Another guy I'm going to throw in here. I'll show you Kevin Yu. Kevin Yu might be a pick here that I would like to do, considering he should be playing in the American Express, the Players, the CJ Cup, the John Deere, and the Scottish based on last year's schedule. The problem with Yu, and I've clicked him a bunch, but the problem with Kevin Yu, he missed a lot of cuts. He was 48th percentile in cuts made, only 33rd percentile in top tens, although he did play 90th percentile in rounds played, 90th percentile in birdies per round. Those seem like they wouldn't match up, but that just means he's playing these weaker field events and doing well there. And then the tougher field events, he's doing worse in. So I still like Kevin Yu. I think he's a fine click, but I'm a little bit skeptical. Maybe I should go instead for a bounce back year from a guy like Tom Kim, who we think is super talented. Is this a place I want to go for Tom Kim? He potentially hits the same events for me, and I think is maybe a better golfer. Let's go into data golf and see what we can get on Tom Kim, how we feel about his 2026 prospects. He's really fallen in the world golf rankings, his FedEx Cup standing, and his data golf ranking. So he's going to have to grind out some of these tournaments this year and earn some status back. Only one top 10 last season. Pretty bad showing from Tom Kim. But if we go back to 2024, I mean, this is a guy who is consistently getting top 10s. The Canadian, the Travelers, he's competing in the Olympics. Still, he did have a lot of, I would say, poor performances early in the season in 2024. Going back to 2023, he seems like kind of a late season guy. But then again, early season, he was doing well. I think I can wait on drafting Tom Kim in this one because I don't think there's any rush to get him. He'll be there. So let me go ahead and find Kevin Yu, Tom Kim. I'll queue them up. Is there someone else I want to take before I make that selection? I looked at Keith Mitchell. Based on what I need to fill out, I'm good on the signature events. I'm good on the majors. It really is coming down to these events, the CJ Cup, making sure I have the Cognizant filled out, the Canadian, and the John Deere. So I do need to start scrolling down already, even though there's 3 rounds left in this big scramble. Hey, shout out to Anthony, aka Best Ball on Call. I'm not sure what I'm watching, but it's provocative. Hope you're having a great week, my man. Good to see you as always. We got Dale here. Always good to see you, Dale. Watch the last couple of shows. Who should I look for in the 3rd round? Griffin and Spawn, my first 2 picks. I love Griffin. I love Spawn. Drafting a ton of these guys. You can see here, this is a big scramble. I took Cameron Young and Spawn with my first 2 picks. I like Corey Connors in the 3rd round. I think he's a little underrated. Let me show you some data of why I like Corey Connors. I'm starting to click him more and more. I've come around to the idea. Corey Connors, only 59th percentile in rounds played, but we know his schedule. He's been a signature event qualified player for a number of years, so he's pretty predictable. And I think he also hits some nice events. He definitely should give you the Canadian Open, which can be hard to fill sometimes. He plays the Scottish. He's in the majors. He's trending that way. He'll give you the Valspar and the Valero, which is not too bad, not too shabby. It's unfortunate he's not playing the Cognizant or the American Express, but at least we think he'll play the Sony. But the stats that I want to show you is 96th percentile among the top 200 players in the PGA last season in cuts made. This guy makes every cut. I think he missed 1 cut last season. 96th percentile in top 10s. So he's making a lot of top 10s, just as much as some of these star players like a Robert McIntyre or Ludwig Oberg. He's making just as many cuts as Sepp Straka or JJ Spawn or even Cameron Young, Xander Schauffele, Sam Burns. So I think Corey Connors, maybe he plays a couple more events than we're expecting, but even if he just sticks to the events that he's traditionally done, he's really effective in those events. So I think Corey Connors is a guy I go for in the 3rd round. I love Sam Stevens. He was the highest scoring player in PGA best ball, season-long best ball, the scramble last season. So he's a guy I want to go for. The reason he was the highest scoring player, he's playing the most rounds of anyone. He's making 83% of his cuts and 67%, 83rd percentile for making cuts and 67th percentile for making top 10. So if you think about that, and I know the scoring format has changed going to 2026, but think about that as like the loose blueprint on what you're looking for. First and foremost, you're looking for a guy who plays a lot of rounds. Then you're looking for someone who makes a lot of cuts. It's somewhat important that they make a lot of top 10s. That's become increasingly important with the new scoring format in 2026. The birdies per round, at the end of the day, it's a directional indicator of success, but he's 15th percentile in birdies per round, and he's still the highest scoring player in a birdie-driven format. So that seems like it would be kind of conflicting evidence there and a little bit hard to wrap, for me, a little bit hard to wrap my head around, but that's kind of a blueprint for a successful golfer. He did have a status change. Now he's a signature event golfer going into 2026. Does he play less events? Does he skip some of these events? Maybe. Does his profile kind of change from what we saw last year potentially? But that's something that I look for, and I'm looking for other golfers who kind of reflect that in some ways, which leads me to guys like Rico Hoey, who plays a lot of rounds and is decent in cuts and top 10s. Jacob Bridgman is similar. Ryan Gerard is similar. Nico Echevarria, who is not in the signature events, but he is in the first 2 because of his swing 10 status, the Pebble and the Genesis. I love that click. I think you can get him a little bit later on than just the 3rd round. But speaking purely on the 3rd round, I like Maverick McNeely a ton. People forget Maverick McNeely was on the 2nd place team and the 3rd place team in 2025 of the people who won the top finishes in the Scramble. Shout out to Hot Soup, Rob, Smash, and AP44. Hey, who's that guy? Coming in 28th, the Candyman. I also had Maverick McNeely on my team. I had Ben Griffin, Scotty Scheffler. Of course, you had to have him. Wyndham Clark, who I'm still drafting a lot of this year. He goes later. Sam Stevens, Harry Hall, two of my favorite clicks. If you can get Harry Hall in the third round, auto click every time. Sam Stevens, kind of in the same boat for me. So those are some of my favorite clicks. Shout out to Dale. Great question. Jeff T was saying Noren and Johnny Kiefer are 0% everything. Can't draft them. Yeah. At the same time, we don't have data on guys who didn't play the tour last year, like Brennan or Johnny Kiefer. I don't know why Alex Noren doesn't show up. Alex Noren did play on the tour last year. Maybe he didn't register enough rounds to get into the data set, and that's probably what it is, because when we look at Alex Noren's 2025, he's still playing a ton of DP World Tour events. I think he only played, a handful of PGA Tour events, and he's just not hitting the threshold to register. So Alex Noren, another guy, but I would say, draft with caution. Take Alex Noren, treat him as a signature event golfer because of his top, he's top 11 right now in the world golf rankings, but expect him to be a top 30 world ranking golfer probably for at least half the season if he doesn't maintain where he's already at, and that gets him entry into the signature events, being a top 30 in the official world golf rankings. So I treat him like a signature event golfer. He's an experienced veteran. He's been on the tour for a long time. He's played the DP World Tour a million times. He hasn't yet won on the PGA Tour, but he might be playing a ton of PGA Tour events this season. So I think I'm still drafting some Noren. I'm taking kind of later in drafts, especially when he's past ADP and I have a team that I think can really support taking him on. Yeah, Akshay did withdraw from the Farmers last year. If he played, that's a good bull case for Akshay if he does go ahead and play the Farmers. Um, here, let's scroll to Akshay. I'm highlighting Brian Harmon right now, but that Akshay I think is a nice. People forget he's only 23 years old. He is one of the top 20 players under 25 in the world. He's one of the top probably 5 players under 25 on the PGA Tour. So a lot of potential, some pretty nice stats. I want to click more Akshay. I probably should. And I probably should click him in this tournament we have right here on the clock. I mean, Akshay Bhatia, ADP 37. I'm at pick 55. Let me see if I can fit Akshay into this team based on my current lineup. I think it's just hard for me to fit him in right now because of the golfers I've already selected. I don't need any more signature event or majors golfers. And Akshay is not going to be hitting the CJ Cup, the Canadian, the John Deere. If I take Akshay here, I'm really going to have to get lucky with only having, even if I draft my next 2 golfers for the CJ Cup, the John Deere, the Canadian, I mean, it's kind of threading a needle. So it's tough. It's tough. It really comes down to team fit. Because I took Goddard, I don't have a spot left for Akshay. And maybe I should have taken Akshay over Goddard. That's definitely up for debate. But I need to take 3 more grinders, 3 guys who aren't necessarily in signature events to make sure I get enough entries into these other open tournaments. Yeah, that's another good point from Darren there. I do like taking Keith Mitchell. I thought about taking him here. Whoops. I thought about taking Mitchell. He doesn't fit perfectly because I don't have him playing in the CJ Cup. So I'm going to try to stress filling out the schedule here on this one. Yeah, Henley is one of my most drafted players. I think he's in my top 2 exposures. So let's keep that between us. Draft a lot of Russell Henley. Honestly, I don't know if he's right for this format. He's He's only playing so many events, but we know he's a really solid golfer. Tons of cuts made, tons of top tens. He's one of the best golfers in the world right now, has been for a few years. So I'm open to drafting him. I know he's a better fit for like the Albatross, and hopefully it's not going too far to draft him in this format. With the tournaments that he's in, can hopefully still put up some points for us. Exactly. Yeah, I'm in the same boat with Jeff T here. I'm worried about it. Chris Kirk is a solid pick. I think he's already selected in this particular big scramble that I'm in. He's already off the board, but I would agree with this. And his price has been rising dramatically since the rankings have come out from some of our friends across the industry in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, Benny On is a good shout. Let me plug in. I don't know if On is still available. He is. Let me go ahead here and plug in Benny On. Yeah, he hits everything except for the John Deere. So I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna keep it 100 and make sure I fill out these events. But that's a good shout. I need to get a little bit more of him. 46% Maverick McNeely. That's a pretty strong exposure. I'm not opposed to it. My only devil's advocate on that is, what if he gets hurt? What if he hurts his wrist, his back, misses an event or two or a couple weeks? So I would just, at that high of an exposure to any given player, there's just a lot of risk. I try to, you know, a little best ball rule for me across all of the sports is I try to keep my exposures as close to a third or a fourth on my highest drafted players. And the later in the draft they go, the more you can be exposed. But McNeely is consistently a second, third, maybe fourth round pick in this format. So it's a lot of risks to have that much exposure to a top player. But if it's McNeely's season and he's knocking down some tournaments, getting some big wins, it can definitely pay off. High risk, high reward. I just think about 46%, there's a lot of injury risk there, even more than bad performance risk. Yeah, fifth round, I love that. I mean, I would smash McNeely in the fourth round like easily. I took him here in the fourth in this big scramble. I'm a big McNeely guy. He's one of my top drafted players as well. Oh, second round, Dale, we'll fix that. We got to do a little bit more intentional drafting around the schedule. The schedule's changed a little bit. When I first started drafting the scramble back in would that be, I guess, either 2023 or 2024, I had the similar problem getting out of round two. And, the problem that I found myself falling short, I was drafting the best golfers, but I was not drafting the right golfers to fill out a schedule to best fit this tournament. And that's kind of what I'm leaning into here as I'm talking about, like, why I'm not going to just take Akshay Bhatia. It's very duplicative in the events that he's going to play in to what I've already filled out in my roster by taking guys like McNeely, Connors, Gerard, Henley, and Goddard, covering the majors and the signature events. And so I really need to hammer this CJ Cup, the John Deere, the Scottish, even the Cognizant to some extent, the American Express, the Sony, if I can, to continue to fill out this roster to win a tournament like this. This is some good insight. This is some good intel from Darren. This is some inside golf info. This is good to know. I like that. Yeah, the dailies going to weeklies is going to be a huge change, and so I'll be doing um going forward once the scramble closes. I'll be doing Albatross content, and then even then during in the season, I'll be doing PGA Best Ball Wednesdays here on the channel where we draft weeklies together for every tournament that comes up, for the Sony, for the Amex, the Farmers, the Phoenix, the Pebble, the Genesis, so on, all across the tournament. During all the tournaments across the season, we'll be drafting weeklies here together, talking one and done content, doing weeklies, and just vibing, talking golf Wednesday nights. So that's the schedule going forward. Yeah, Keith Mitchell, a dog. Yo, what's up, Tyler? How we doing, my man? Emo Cowboy, good to see you as always, my friend. And looking forward to the Toxic Tower stream on Tuesday nights with the boys, Tyler, and Eric. They're going live tomorrow night. Going to talk some NFL playoffs, best ball content, and a look ahead to the top 36 players in ADP for 2026 NFL best ball. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. You'll find me in the chat there tomorrow night. Jeff says, thoughts on Gracerman? I took him in the 8th round. Oh, smash. He's a guy you'll need to win with the projected volume. I'm willing to buy the live dip. Me too. I'm pretty exposed to Gracerman. On my team, uh, I had him a lot last year as well. On my top team, I didn't have him particularly. But if you look over here, the team that finished first, shout out to Hot Soup, Gracerman's on that team last year. He's an integral piece to winning the Scramble in 2025. So Grazerman, he's got great stats. He's no longer qualified for the signature events automatically. He's in the first 2 through the Aeon Next 10. Plays a bunch of events. He makes a decent amount of cuts, a decent amount of top 10s. Good enough. Makes enough birdies. So I'm drafting more and more Gracerman. I think I'm currently about at the field, or about 18 plus or minus percent. I'll probably get up to about 20% Gracerman. And if he defects to live a week or two into the PGA season, RIP to those teams. But risk reward, I think we're getting a big dip on Gracerman due to the uncertainty here, kind of like we did for a week or two with Siwoo Kim, maybe even a little bit for a while there for Sung J M. So if there were no live rumors around Max, I bet you could be going ADP closer to Jordan Spieth, maybe just afterwards. So probably in the top 20. He's currently more of a top 30 pick. And you see guys, you see in isolated drafts, like Jeff was saying, he falls around 2, 3, 4 rounds past ADP because people are afraid of the live rumors. I think you need to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy kind of perspective. So if you've got some risk tolerance to taking on some Grazerman, we're all going to lose anyways. You might as well risk it and go for a guy that can pay off some reward at his current ADP and play a lot of events and do well. I think Grazerman's a good golfer, and he's actually good for this format as well. Let's go back to the clock. I need to pick a grinder here for this big scramble. We just took Goddard up. It's like, do we go Kevin Yu? Do we go Tom Kim? What I'm going to do, actually, let's really hone in on the CJ, the John Deere, and in the Canadian. So I'm going to go to my projected schedule. I'm going to filter here first for the CJ, then for the John Deere. Lastly, and most least, the Canadian. It's not really a great scoring event, so I'm trying to get it covered, but it's not as important for scoring. I'd also like if they were in the Scottish, the American Express, and even the Sony. And we're going to go the first, I'm ranking by ADP, like who shows up. It's picks after pick. It's all signature events, guys. Bhatia, Morikawa, Hovland, Fox, English, and then Højgaard at pick 59. I update my ADPs in my model every Tuesday, so I'm one day away from updating my ADPs here. So they're a little bit behind. ADPs have been changing pretty rapidly week to week. If I scroll down, I'm essentially in this range here. Homa is already gone. I would have drafted Homa. Pinge is gone. Yu is the first one to show up. Then Tom Kim, like we established. I think Finau is interesting, but he's it's a projection to know if Finau will actually play these events because he's a status change guy. I think Finau is a good golfer. Is he going to play these events? I don't know. Maybe. Patrick Rogers is interesting. He's been missing a lot of cuts. I'm a little bit more interested in Vince Whaley. Pearson Cootie is interesting. Smalley is interesting. Also misses a lot of cuts. Ryu Hisatsune is a click that I've been making. Emiliano Grillo is a pick I like. He's kind of a scroll down guy. I think at this point I might go with I might go with Whaley. I feel like that's the pick I want to make. And then I'll leave it up to the next round whether I go for a Tom Kim, Kevin Yu, or do I want to take Tom Kim right now? Let's go back to data golf. I'm going to throw in there Vince Whaley. I think I might want to go Vince Whaley first. Looking for his first career win, picking up some momentum. I've sorted the strokes gained rolling stat to their moving average on 25 rounds, benchmark top 10 golfer in the PGA. So Vince Whaley, he's kind of buttoned up against that. I think he's moving in the right direction. He has some momentum. Can we get a top 10 performance from him at an event that actually matters? The problem with Vince, he's doing well at Puerto Rico, Corrales in the Myrtle Beach. I mean, I guess he did fine at Charles Schwab, fine at, like I said, Corrales in the CJ Cup, the ISCO Championship, which is an alternate event across from the Scottish Genesis Open. So, you know, are we going after the wrong signals? What about Griot? Griot's a guy I've been scrolling down for, Emiliano. Do we just go for him? Is he more effective at actual tournaments that matter? Came in second in the John Deere. I like to see that. Plays the Canadian, the Charles Schwab, plays the Texas Valero in the Children's, the Valspar, the COG, Sony American Express. I mean, I think I'm sold. He's not a bad golfer. I'm gonna go ahead and grab Griot at this point in the draft. Scrolling down, getting a guy that fits what I need for this team is what it's all about. More so than just drafting the best golfers. And I like that click though. I've been taking him in the 12th round, but I'll take him in the 10th and I'll figure some things out later. That is my big scramble. You have to really think those ones through. Spend a little bit extra time going through some of those picks and what the team actually needs. I'm trying to find that team here. Where did I paste that one in? Cameron Young, JJ Spawn, big. Oh, that's this one because I took Goddard and Griot with those last two picks. Here we go. We'll clear this out, and then I've got another slow that's due up to make a pick for. This one here, it's a scramble. Got 5 minutes left to make a pick. We'll jump into that. Maybe even do this 34-minute one before we jump into some live drafts. This team, it's pretty early on. Ben Griffin, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth. I love Jordan Spieth in the third round. I have a choice here between Nick Taylor, who's been rising up. I have a bunch of Nick Taylor. Corey Connors, who I was hyping up earlier. JT Poston, I think, is another good click. If I can get Michael Brennan or Ryan Gerard or even Jacob Bridgman or Nico at pick 27, that's a good place to be in. EVR up on your board so we can see his tournament exposures. Yeah, I can throw up Eric Van Rooyen. I don't know if I have the most up-to-date projection for him because I do them with some assistance, but also by hand. Yeah, it's not very up-to-date. I need to pop over here and sort and filter for him. Eric Van Ruin Your Weekend is what they call him in the DFS streets because he's old, unreliable. But I like him. You know, he's a fun golfer to watch. Okay, the more up-to-date schedule I have has him in the first 4 events, the COG, the Players, Valero, CJ Schwab, Canadian, and the Scottish. So he's not playing the Deer. He's in a decent amount of these events. I think he's draftable. I have not been clicking Eric. I've drafted him previously in other years. He's draftable. He's got a decent FedEx Cup standing, so he'll be in these events. Just how much do you trust him to perform? You know, he's a runner-up at the CJ Cup last year. That's pretty impressive. Number 9 at the COG. That's not bad. He's an international golfer, but he's been on the PGA Tour for a while. He's been a professional for, many years. If I go to my model here and I just scroll down to Eric, if I go ahead and clear my filters, I'm interested to see what percentiles he's in last season, because he seems like actually not a bad shout, not a bad pick. Eric, unfortunately, he's 23rd percentile in rounds played, 22nd percentile in cuts made, 63rd percentile in top tens. But it didn't look that way. Just a cursory look at his 2025. So he didn't play that many rounds. It seems like he played a fair amount of rounds. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I think it comes down to him missing so many cuts. The more cuts you miss, the less rounds you're naturally gonna play. So maybe he's starting more tournaments and just not finishing them. That's kind of unfortunate. But there's 2 top tens in events that matter. Outside of that, yeah, Eric Van Rooyen. Interesting pick. All right, what am I gonna do here? I've got a minute left to make this pick in this Ben Griffin, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth team. If I throw that up to my live model, Ben Griffin, Cameron Young, Spieth. I mean, I can pretty much take anything. The whole board's open to me. So I think we'll just make this pick based on what we think we want to do. Either it's Nick Taylor, Corey Connors, or JT Poston. Throw those in here. I mean, Nick Taylor's nice because he plays the Sony, the American Express, in the Canadian. Goes for the Scottish. Not a bad golfer. Connors fills out some of these middle events. Valspar and Valero trade off to Houston. Otherwise similar. And then Poston, who I'm starting to click a little bit more. I wasn't clicking so much Poston previously, but I like the fact that he plays the John Deere. So that's kind of interesting. I think Poston's not too bad overall either. We'll pull up JT Poston. He's a pretty decent golfer. T5 at the PGA. You love to see it. We go to our data on Poston quickly before we make this pick. I just want to see one last comparison here. 88th percentile, 86th percentile, 39th. So he's not making a lot of top 10s compared to guys like a Nick Taylor or a Corey Connors. I'm going to go with Corey Connors. I feel like he's the click to make right now in the 4th round. But if Poston's there or Nick Taylor with my next pick, I'd feel pretty good about taking them early in the 5th round. I don't know if I'd already started this team, but we'll just throw that in there in case I already haven't. No, I don't see it. Quick glance. Let's make this last slow draft pick that's 28 minutes away from being due up before I jump into a fast draft here. And maybe I should put my toe in the waters. Well, you know what? We can always come back to these other 2-hour away slow drafts if it's taking a long time to fill the fast draft. So I'm not too worried. Let me jump in here. We got 28 minutes to make this pick. We're in the 7th round. Cam Young, Sepp Straka, Jordan Spieth, Corey Connors in the 4th. Nice. Poston in the 5th, like I said. Gracerman in the 6th. Yeah, Gracerman in the 8th is nice. I have not gotten him that late yet. Yeah. Tony Finau, more like Tony Finito. Cootie with PGA status will play Texas events. He's a Texan. Shout out to my Texan boys. Also a Texan here. I'm Houston based. I go to the Charles Schwab event. My brother lives in Fort Worth, so I'll go to the Charles Schwab this year. I got this right here. Boom. We'll make it out to Colonial. I don't have a Houston Open hat or shirt. I really should have, but it was raining when I went there last year, and I didn't really stick around too long because the inclement weather. And it was fine. We got to watch Rory, Scotty, Wyndham Clark, Sung JM, to name a few. I mean, everyone was there. Woodland, everyone was at. A lot of guys were at Houston last year, so I'll go to Houston. And Houston's a fine event. It's not quite as nice as Colonial, and the Memorial Park golf course is also my home course. That's where I play on the weekends. That's where I go to the driving range. I go chip and putt there. I was there a couple days ago, chipping and putting around on New Year's Day. So it's a good course, but from a attending the tournament standpoint, the Colonial is first class. It's a first class situation. It's a very nice event. The food is amazing. The drinks are amazing. The venue is amazing. I almost gave them some feedback last year. I need to give them some feedback this year. Maybe they'll give me a little voucher for something, but the Houston Open's got to step their game up on their fan experience. It was fine, but they can do a lot better. So those are the two tournaments I typically go to. We'll see what else I can get myself into this year. If we end up going to like a Byron Nelson would be nice. My brother usually goes to that one. It's just whether or not I can get there or not. And then I don't know, the Valero would be very fun to go to as well. I think the Valero at TPC San Antonio would be sick. I want to go play TPC San Antonio. They send me emails all the time asking me to go there and spend $500 a night on a hotel room and getting a free round of golf or something out of it. I might end up doing that. They have like a really nice resort and setup. It'd be fun for the kids, fun for me. So it's kind of honestly on my short list of places to go next. Harbor Town would be sick. I went there as a kid, not when the tournament was there, but I'd been there like on a vacation before. Very fun town to visit. I mean, who wouldn't want to go to the Phoenix Open? TPC Scottsdale looks like an insane time. And it's typically, if I'm not mistaken, the exact same weekend as the Super Bowl. So that's kind of a fun vibe of a weekend to have like a guys weekend or something. Maybe that's also probably on my list of places I'd like to go. What are we gonna do with this pick? Let me load this team up. Let me catch up with y'all. If grinders that fill your roster were good, they wouldn't be available late. Basically, just take your stabs at grinders and hope they have their best year ever. Yeah, I think it's two things. I think there is this mental block, or there is this like bias that drafters have to take brand names, household names, golfers that are actually good that they know. But Jeff, look at the golfers that won this format last year. Justin Lauer, Samuel Stevens, Harry Hall, Jake Knapp, a little bit more infamous than the others, Matt McCarty, Nico Echeverria, Max Grazerman, Davis Thompson. Other than Scotty Scheffler, potentially Sam Burns, even though he's not like a household name necessarily, just us golf fans know him. And Jake Knapp, outside of like those two or three guys, these are not household names. These are not golfers that your average casual, golf fan who maybe just watches the majors is keeping track of. And a lot of the guys who are drafting the Scramble are very sharp. So I'll give them credit. But these are some grinders. These are some guys who you might not expect. Tom Hoagie. There's Akshay right here. He's a little bit more infamous. Goddard, definitely not a household name, up and comer. Davis Riley on the third place team. So there is some room to, I think, take a stab at some of these guys that we're calling the grinders. We're calling the players who are in more of these normie events. I mean, there's going to be 120 plus guys that qualify for most of these events, these opens, and we're only drafting 72 in this format. So there's another 50 guys. Literally half the field is going undrafted or underdrafted, right? So there is an edge there. Yeah, fast draft time, brother. Let's get into one. Hey, shout out to Deluxe7 tuning in on the Twitter. Appreciate you being here. Yes, sir. And sorry to get to your comment so late. It's 10 minutes later, but hope you're still here. Hope you're doing well. Good to see you, Deluxe. This is just a little spreadsheet I put together. I've brought together a few different sources, but this is essentially a projected schedule. And then here in my live model, I can fill out my names for my players who I'm drafting, and then that just feeds through. I brought forward some data from the 2025 season. This is the birdies list, has some other data to it, earnings and things. And then I have in another spreadsheet, I've got the ADP trends I've been tracking since November 26th. I take it every Tuesday. I pull the ADP. So, for instance, we can see here Michael Kim was going undrafted in week 1. He was a 45th ADP in week 2, then 31st, then 19, 11, and 8. I think when we pull the ADP tomorrow, he'll be pick 6 or 5 even. So I'm tracking change week over week, the ADPs, all that good stuff. I've got the money list here and just crunching some numbers. Nothing crazy to take away from that, but the percentage of top 10s or top 25s, how many events they played, yada, yada, all that good stuff helps me focus in. I have the schedule here, the recent history of number of birdies in the top. I think I pulled top 25 golfers per event and how many birdies they had, what their score was. I think what I did on the average, it might have been top 15, but I think it was top 25. I pulled it last year, so it's also 1 year old, but it's still largely accurate. A lot of the events are the same. I don't have any data for Trump National at Doral because it's a new event. And then some of the other events that change courses like the PGA and the Open, US Open, that data is going to have to be a little bit different. So I'm not so focused on the majors right now, though. We'll hone in our majors research for the Albatross. Right now, it's much more heavily weighted towards all of the other combined events. All right, let's load up this team. Good to see you, Deluxe. Thanks for being here. Thanks, everyone, for watching, too. Make sure you throw a like on the stream. Make sure you vote in the poll. I think I started a poll 2 days ago. I can't even remember what it is, but just go ahead and vote. I'll close that out in a few minutes as well. But please throw a like on the stream. Make sure you're subscribed. Come say what up in the chat. If you're new, if you're watching this as a playback in the future, thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Help me hit that sub goal of 1,000 subs. And it costs you nothing, but it helps me out, too, and support the channel. And yeah, appreciate y'all for being here. Hope you're having a great Monday night. Great start to the week. And looking forward to the start of the PGA season. We're less than 2 weeks away. The Sony kicks off next Thursday. I'm so hyped about it. I'm going to be doing PGA best ball content all PGA season long with the weeklies, with the one and dones, and the Albatross coming up next. And then also, of course, we do PGA, we do NFL best ball content year round. So that'll be starting up soon. Only a few weeks until we start drafting for 2026 with all the new rookies and all that good stuff. The big board will open up. It's insane. This team I'm looking at, Cam Young, Sepp Straka, ends it with Grazerman. Let's go find this one. Cam Young. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, Poston, and then I took Grazerman. But I don't think I had saved the latest and greatest version of it. So let's throw Grazerman in there. A lot of holes still left to fill, but we're only halfway through the draft. Who's available? Do we take Batia here? I like Denny McCarthy. Chris Kirk's a fun click. McCarty's nice. So I'll highlight McCarty. I have too much Aaron Rye, so I'm going to push him. Kirk, McCarty. Is this a team that could fit Batia? Honestly, no. Maybe. I only need like one more signature event / majors golfer. I'm pretty good on that front. I think it would benefit me more to do. Let me just see how Denny McCarthy fits in. He covers some nice ground, but I might push that. Kirk, really, really strong for the first segment. I don't know what he's going to be getting himself into in the second segment. He's a status change guy. He lost his signature event status, so maybe he does end up playing Houston, Valspar. Maybe he plays the CJ this year. He should play the Deer and the Scottish though. So I kind of like taking Chris Kirk. I want to see what his history is on the CJ Cup. So let's go ahead and look at Chris Kirk's history and see if he's likely to play the CJ Cup now that he's lost his status. He's borderline though. He's a next 10 guy, which is why he gets into the first two signature events. And Chris Kirk, he's like a veteran golfer on the tour. He's played a lot of these events and he's had some success at a number of them. Obviously didn't play the CJ last year. He had a status. He also had status 2 years ago. He won the Century, the first event of the year in 2024. Didn't play the CJ that year. 2023 did not. Once we get past this, it's kind of hard to figure out. He did win the Cognizant, aka the Honda Classic back then. 2022 is when the schedule starts getting weird. Looks a little bit different than it does today, but close enough. I mean, he had a great 2022. It looks like 2021, still no CJ Cup, aka the Byron Nelson. There it is. So he played it in 2022, but it was a completely different event. It was at the Summit Club. So that's not the same course. That's not what we're looking for, not what we're thinking of. I think I am going to take Kirk on this team. We still really need to fill out the CJ Cup going forward, though. But I think this is a good spot to take Kirk. What do you guys think? Hell yeah, Darren. Yeah, appreciate that. I'm pretty data heavy, not only in my best ball for PGA, but also for the NFL as well. So, like, I'll share this with you. This is my document I've been working in all year for my NFL best ball. And the long short of it is I track all of this is my running back data, which I think is the most indicative, and people care most about the running back performances. These are the top running back performances from the entire season. The only week I haven't loaded in yet was week 17 because I'll get to it at some point, but I'm pretty focused on PGA right now. But I need to load in week 17. But here's all the best single week performances from running backs for the entire season, and then I summarize that by golfer here, and I pull up stats like the percentage of time they're hitting a threshold, whether it's above 20 points, 17, 13, or 10 fantasy points in that week. So then I kind of sort by different things: their highest scoring game, their average score, fantasy points per touches, all of this, fun metrics to help us during the season, in season, and before the season looking back. So for 2026, this is a document I'm going to reference a bunch when I'm drafting running backs. I'll also put this together for wide receivers, quarterbacks, and tight ends, but I was using it from running backs live during the season for a lot of my NFL stuff. But all this kind of stuff, bring in as much data as we can and projections that we can. It's fun. It's fun for the Scramble because you have to like project the schedule. So it's very nuanced, but it's a lot of fun. I'm going to go ahead and grab Kirk here on this team. Chris Kirk has been rising a bunch. And ADP 40, or it's actually ADP who's like 38. I take him at pick 40. Going back to the beginning of drafting season, Chris Kirk was going in the 60s up until about 2 weeks ago, and then in the 50s. Now he's in the 30s. So he's been a big riser. Anytime you're drafting in best ball and you see a player rising like that, that's a signal to chase them up the board, not to avoid them. You don't say, oh, well, people got him cheaper in the pick 60s previously. ADP doesn't matter so much for this tournament anyways. That's an indication he's a good pick. So that should reinforce you to take more of him. You want to chase players up the board, and you want to fade players that are falling down the board. Unless you just know ball, you just know better. If a guy like Grazerman's falling and you think, you know what, I know better. He's falling because of the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt. I'm still going to take him a bunch. Maybe you can leverage that, but generally you want to be drafting players that are rising up the board. So Michael Kim went from a late round pick to one of the first round picks. That doesn't mean you shouldn't draft him. You should be chasing him up the board. I think that's something I've learned, and kind of applies to all the different sports, all the different best ball formats, whether it's NFL or PGA. And so just because I have 30, 50 Kirk teams already, and a lot of those are at ADP, because I've drafted a lot of Kirk, are at a pick in the 60s or 50s. If Kirk is a guy you need this season, it's not going to matter if you get him at pick 30, 40, 50, or 60. It's going to matter that you have him. So that's kind of a lesson I've learned over the years in best ball. Yeah, load up on Grazerman. I think so too, because I was a little bit below the field on Grazerman. I was about 15% all season long drafting. I've been drafting him at a 20, 30% clip over the last couple weeks. So I think my exposure is going to even out a little bit. I'll probably be about 20 to 25% Grazerman when it's all said and done, maybe closer to 20%. Hey, appreciate you, Deluxe. Always good to see you. Hope you're having a great night, man. Kirk doesn't play the Nelson. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good. Very true. Very true. Which is like sometimes you can load up on guys early. There are some late picks that will get you some CJ Cup late. Okay, so for my active drafts, the next one is this one. Let's go ahead and jump into a live draft. Let's go ahead and see how close we can get to filled on a Pat Mayo Classic. Oh, would you look at that? Waiting on 5, now waiting on 4. So I think one of you jumped in. Maybe it was Jeff T. I'll give that. I'm gonna pull that up on my phone, and we'll give that, a 10-minute countdown if it fills or not. And if it doesn't fill, we'll just jump out and we'll do something that potentially can fill, like a regular scramble. But that is not a good signal. Waiting on 5. Yeah. I'm going to have that up on my phone. Let's jump back into the slow drafts and we'll talk through some more picks. At the same time, remind y'all to make sure you're subscribed. Come say what up in the chat. If you're watching on Twitter, come over to the YouTube, subscribe there, hit the like button, say what up. And if you're watching this in the future as well, leave a comment. Let me know who some of your late round favorite clicks are. I'll throw out 3 names that I really like. Emiliano Grillo, I think, is a good late round pick. I like Ryu Hisatsune. He's a little bit underrated, still a young guy. He's been on the tour for a while, been playing in these professional events for a while. I think he can have a good 2026 and hit your lineup a few times. So that's another pick I like. I've been drafting some Whaley in the last round. I was doing more Patrick Rogers previously. I'm leaning back into Whaley. And then I do want to grab some Tom Kim and a little bit of Tony Finau late. I haven't done it so much, but I've done it a little bit. And I kind of feel like I want to get more of those guys because we know they're good golfers. And if they're not in the signature events and they are playing in these weaker fields, I think they can find some success and get some more top 10s. So those are some names. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this later. Who do you think are some good scroll down names or just some late round names that you're kind of leaning into? It's good to diversify your late round picks. A lot of these players in the top 80 are getting drafted constantly. If you can just scroll down a little bit and get a player that's 50% drafted or 20% drafted, it gives you a slight edge that you just show up to the second round, the third round, the fourth round of this tournament with a lower owned piece that can separate you from the field. And in these large field tournaments, that's part of what can help you win. So from a game theory perspective, scroll down for these guys. What's the difference between, a Davis Riley and honestly a Matt McCarty or some of these other guys we're drafting more of? You could say that they're one or the other is a better golfer in real life, but this isn't necessarily a mirror of drafting the best real life golfers. And we know that because we've seen the results year over year. It's not the teams that draft the best golfers that win the scramble. It's the teams that draft the best players to fill out the schedule. So there's a whole different, incentive to taking players to be able to win this kind of tournament. Yeah, I know. Jeff T jumped in and he jumped right back out of that Pat Mayo Classic. I caught that. Shout out to ASAP Tuna. He's in a lot of these slow drafts. We see him here. My guy. And yeah, no, I agree with that. I think I was gonna potentially sneak into one of the Pat Mayo Classic drafts, but it seems like it's gonna be hard enough to fill. Maybe it's not the right time of night to do one. I'm gonna leave it open for another 10 minutes. It's still waiting on 5 more, and I'm not necessarily encouraging anyone to jump in because, well, although it is a 2 out of 6 advance, so it's like we could both make it through, but at the same time, you know, draft with caution if you want to be in a sharp room or a weak room. But I don't think there's going to be many weak drafters jumping into the Pat Mayo Classic. I think it's going to be mostly sharps. Yeah. So Jeff likes Matty Schmid. I like Matty Schmid too. I've got a couple of him. I could use some more. I could use some more Matty Schmid. Just draft the 12 SIGs and YOLO it. Yeah, that sounds like me the first year I entered the scramble. I remember drafting a lot of Justin Rose, a lot of Adam Scott, and that's when they were signature event golfers. Rose still is, and he honestly is a little bit underdrafted, even though he didn't play too many tournaments. Adam Scott is not a signature event guy this year. Might be an interesting click. Last night I was talking to Mike from Mike's Money Picks, and he was advocating for clicking some more Adam Scott in the late rounds. I think he still plays a pretty weak schedule, and by that I mean just not a lot of events, not a lot of rounds. But we know he's good. He's definitely a guy I target for the Albatross. But yeah, 12 SIGs YOLO. Honestly, you know what's more YOLO? Draft 12 non-SIGs and then see how many of those guys earn their way into signature events. That's the real YOLO ball. I want to do at least one of those before I finish the scramble. I want to have one where it's like I didn't draft a single guy who's in the signature events. Probably just load up early on the guys who are in the next 10 and then hope that guys get into the next 10 and the Aeon Swing 5 throughout the season kind of thing. Be pretty fun. Yo, what's up, Mike? Good to see you again. How we doing, brother? Slows are the way to go, particularly for us newbies that need the extra time to think things through. 100%, 100% agree. I do probably previously I did more fast. Last year, I would say 75% slows in PGA season long best ball for the scramble in particular. And I found a lot more success. So this year, I'm probably like 80-20 slows to fast. For NFL best ball, I almost do exclusively fasts and hardly any slows just because I don't really like um it's not as appealing to me to be in the slow draft hell of having so many slow drafts for NFL. I like to get it all done in the moment and be aware of what people are doing on the draft board. I did draft a little bit more slows as I was kind of like as a beginner getting into best ball for the NFL and doing it, but over the years, I've just really I really prefer the fast drafts. And I could take advantage of other people's incompetence or their errors or their mistakes in the moment, especially with these 20-second pick clocks. Versus in the slow drafts, people have time to think it through, and that gives you some advantage, but also gives your opponent some advantage. So in that format, and actually for the Albatross, I like doing fast Albatross. I don't mind that because you don't have to think through the nuances of stacking the schedule as much. You're just drafting the best golfers, guys that are in these majors, and get your guys that you like, maybe guys that you think can be breakout players or have a breakout year, a career year. Yo, what's up, D? How we doing? Good to see you. Thanks for jumping in from the Twitter. Just started to get into golf over the past couple years and drafted a few PGA best ball teams. Hell yeah, nice. How'd they turn out? Have you been leaning into any certain golfers that you like, or are you just kind of taking the ADP? I think I think one mistake that I made early on when I was getting into it was like just drafting the guys I really liked too much, and and I think there is some value to spreading out your picks a little bit. Even now, I find myself leaning on certain players more often than just drafting consistently like at ADP or spreading out my picks. But I think depending on how many drafts you're going to do, it is nice to have some variation and sometimes just kind of mix it up just for the sake of mixing it up. I've I'm never failed to I'm like always surprised. Sometimes my best teams are the ones where I got different. Last year in the scramble, I had this team here. I got 28th in the scramble last year. I had two teams in the finals for the scramble. My best one finished 28th. I think I had another one that was in like, I want to say 60th or 70th, which is not too bad either. But this is probably the only team I remember taking Kevin Yu last year. I had a ton of Nick Dunlap. He was my most drafted player, and it was a pretty big dud. But what ended up being probably either my only team with Kevin Yu or one of my very few teams with Kevin Yu ended up being my best team. So just it just speaks to, sometimes even if you don't like a player as much or you don't believe in them, just getting in that extra difference and spreading out some of your picks can really help out. Someone in the 150 just drafted 12 SIGs. See, that's the room that I want to be in on. That's what I'm looking forward to. You got to find those drafts if you can. I'm about to retweet something on Twitter. If you're not following me on Twitter, follow me at FFB Garage. I see some of you guys are on there right now. I'll show you guys this. This is pretty funny because some of you guys are reacting to it. Make sure my DMs are closed. Let me pull this up while we're waiting. So this is from earlier today. I joined this slow draft, and immediately the person in the 101, I have the 102, picks Cameron Young. Hey, get your guys, but at the same time, you're never going to see me pass up on Scotty Scheffler. I tagged Mike because Mike and I were talking about this last night. That this is the second time this has happened to me, and we were literally saying this on the stream last night. But maybe a month ago, somebody took, I think it was Sung JM at the 101, and I got Scotty Scheffler at the 102. Feels good, but it happened again, like literally after we talked about it. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, follow me on Twitter at FFB Garage. I stream live there as well. Let's quote this. Can't type. I'll tag Underdog. Boom. Post. Okay, so yeah, follow me there. You'll know when I'm going live. You can see some other good stuff. And then make sure you're subbed on Twitter. Hey, shout out to Bindles. Appreciate you. Shout out to TJ. Byron. We got, I'll follow you back too. Boom. You guys follow me. I'll follow you back, especially if you look like you're in the fantasy space or the golf space or just a normal person. I'll follow you back. And if I'm not following you back, let me know and I will. Hey, you guys love this picture. That's hilarious. Look at the engagement. That's so funny. Perfect. Okay. Enough Twitter. Here's some of Rick Gaiman's projections. We can get more into that later. So we have some projections that we lean on if we ever want to look at last year's data or this year's data, what we think is going to happen. This is did I throw Kirk down there? Let me throw Kirk onto this one. Save it for later. Poston and then Grazerman. Where did this team go? Cam, Sep, Poston. Oh, I didn't add Grazerman yet either. I have been taking a bunch of Grazerman over the last couple of days. More than I was before. Okay, back to this one. Cameron Young, JJ Spawn, Sam Stevens, Corey Connors. I kind of like this start. It's not a bad start at all. This is the one we were just in. Shout out again to ASAP Tuna. And I mean, 5th round Hideki seems it's like a trap. I'm actually going to go with Echeverria. And then I'd love it if Michael Thorbjornsen was still there with my next pick. He's going to be a riser. People are catching on. I think he's a great pick. Grazerman too, but you can kind of push Grazerman. Novak has a good projection, a lot of points for this season. I like Wyndham Clark. So I'm going to take Nico here in the 5th round. Young, Spawn, Stevens ended with Connors. I don't know if I've saved that one yet. I don't see it in my list. Sometimes if I'm early in the draft, I don't save it. But we'll do Young, Spawn, Stevens, Connor, and then Connors, and then we just took Nico. This is a pretty strong start. I think we're covering a lot of our tournaments, a lot of our bases early and in a good position here. So if you don't have Scotty Scheffler, you might as well give up. But at the same time, you still gotta try. You gotta draft a team that you think can compete, and so you're gonna need to really get lucky on your first round pick. A guy like Cameron Young, maybe he is, the up and comer that he's been projected to be for a long time, and PGA Rookie of the Year formerly, got his first win on the PGA Tour recently. I'll point to this. If you can see this on Data Golf right now, I have it filtered to the last 25 rounds, rolling average, strokes gained total, top 10 benchmark. So a top 10 golfer in terms of strokes gained. Look at this. Recently, Cam Young, and he's always been borderline that guy. He's early in his career in 2023, he was above that benchmark. He's been fighting to get back there. He had a down 2025, then he bounced back towards the end. The end of 2025, going into this current season, he's a top 10 guy. He is going to be, using his putting game and his around the green, his approach to score low, to have some more top 10s. He's been killing it since he won at the Wyndham. Maybe it's just a little boost he needed. He did decent. He always does decent at the majors. It feels like he's one indication I'll always say, especially for the younger golfers, the ones who have exposure to majors, first off, but then second off, the rise to the occasion and perform well at the majors. Cam Young, a T3 at the PGA in 2022. Impressive. Follows that up with a T2 at the Open, T7 at the Masters, 8 at the Open, 9 at the Masters again, T4 at the US Open this last year. Super impressive. So we know he can compete in the toughest field on the toughest courses. Who's to say Cameron Young can't have the season in 2026 that Ben Griffin just had in 2025 or better? I'm here for it. So I'm drafting a lot of Cameron Young. What do you guys think? Are you drafting Cam Young? Are you skipping him? Is he overrated? Am I wrong? I think I'm on track. I think he is one of the next, and we love him. I mean, the dude is kind of a strong, silent type, but if you've seen him in the TGL, a little bit of personality coming out. I think the dude has a lot of wins and top tens ahead of him, and it's going to start with this year. It's going to continue. It started at the end of the last year. Got to catch up. Jeff says Mav McNeely went in the 5th round of a slow draft 2. Let that negative steam heat up, baby. Yeah, I'm all in for it. Darren says he's going for Hubbard. I like that. He's drafted him some Kanaya. I have not clicked Kanaya yet, but that's a name that's interesting to me, and I want to learn more. I know his name is Takayumi Kanaya. He's a Japanese golfer. Been a pro for a little while. I don't know a whole lot about him. He hasn't won on the PGA Tour yet, but he's a decent golfer. He's top 100 in the FedEx Cup. He's going to be in a lot of these events. And I do remember him. I think he had a top 10 finish last year. Where was that I was just thinking about? Oh, it was here, CJ Cup. He had a top 5, a T5 at the CJ Cup. I do remember seeing his name on the leaderboard that week. A T7 at the 3M is not bad. And then he's been pretty active in the FedEx Cup fall, putting together some some nice finishes. So I like this shout. This is a good shout out. Kanaya, I think, is a guy I'm open to clicking. I don't think he's played a full season on the PGA Tour, is partly why. He's been playing on the Asian Tour, if I'm not mistaken, the Japan Golf Tour, and a little bit on the DP World Tour, so the European Tour. Yeah, this is a good shout. This is a good name to look out for. Being top 100 in FedEx Cup standings, he's going to be in a lot of these events, a lot of these open events, and top 120 in the World Golf Rankings. I mean, it takes only a few nice finishes, some T5s, and some runners up to shoot up the World Golf Rankings into a top 50 player. So this is interesting. Interesting shout. I like that. Good shout by Darren. Kevin Roy's a fun one. I've clicked Kevin Roy a few times. Just kind of a guy that can show up in the similar events that we were just describing. Also a top 100 FedEx golfer. So that's something to look out for. What was his best? Yeah, T3 at the John Deere and actually a T8 at the Rocket, which is no longer in the schedule, but he had a nice little stretch here at the Canadian, the Rocket, and the John Deere. T6 at Puerto Rico, not so impressed by that, but at least something. What I did notice this earlier because I was looking at Kevin Roy as I've been drafting him in the last week a few times, and I am open to clicking him more. He's never played in a major, which isn't a terrible thing, but he's been a pro for a long time and doesn't have any wins. He's just another guy, but can he have a best year of his career? Why not? We see JJ Spawn having a career year at 35. Why not Kevin Roy? Honestly, maybe he trends up a little bit, has a nice hot streak. Not out of the question. So I think he's totally draftable. Cam Davis is a guy I've been drafting in previous years. I have not. I think I've clicked Cam Davis exactly one time. Cam Davis is decent in the Albatross. He's decent for where he's finishing the majors. Also, top 100 FedEx Cup. So he'll be playing a lot of events, we assume. He's won on the PGA Tour. Yeah, funnily enough, both Rocket Mortgage Classics, 2021, 2024. Like I said, he's been decent in the majors. He's had some decent finishes. Most recently, his best finish was T19 at the PGA. He's a T12 at the Masters, a T4 at the PGA. So decent. He's a guy I've sprinkled in on Albatross drafts, T5 at Pebble Beach last year. So that's a good shout. Someone I should probably sprinkle in some more of. Cam Davis. I like all these. It's very ball knower takes. Walker. Talking about Danny Walker. I've drafted some Danny Walker. Kind of very similar to what we're describing here. Guy that could have a career best year, get an actual win on the tour. Mao got his first win last season at the ISCO. I've drafted some William Mao. I think he's a young up-and-comer and a good scroll down last round pick. I've only done it. I think I've clicked him one time, maybe twice, but I like that. Springer is a guy I took a lot of last year that I honestly have not taken this year. I don't know what to expect from Hayden Springer. Kind of just a guy, but could be something. Seems like he makes a decent amount of cuts, plays a decent amount of tournaments. He's a little bit lower in the FedEx Cup rankings, 131. He might not be getting into everything, so there is some risk there, but still a name to know. And then Hostler, shout out to my Longhorns. I've actually met Bo Hostler, super nice guy. Me and him, we went to college at the exact same time, and we used to cross paths a little bit around campus. He is younger than me. I will admit that. But yeah, top 110, top 120 guys in FedEx Cup ranking should be getting into most of these events. Still another guy looking for his first win. He's been a pro for a long time, and he might be getting into his prime. Who knows? He's had some stretches where he's been decent. Last year was not great for him. Missed a lot of cuts, didn't have a lot of top 10 finishes, actually. What was it? 2024, I want to say. 2024 was okay for him. not too bad. But yeah, this is a good shout. Good name to know. A guy that hardly gets drafted. I've drafted him at least once, kind of maybe twice. So great shout outs by Darren here. Definite ball knower takes. And this is what you need to be doing, mixing in some of these guys. Shout out to Jake. How we doing, brother? Good to see you. Never really done PGA fantasy before this year. What is the Albatross that differs from the Scramble? Yes, sir. Thanks for being here. Glad to have you. Hope you're having a great Monday night. So, to put it simply, and I'm a huge fan of all kinds of PGA fantasy. I've been playing PGA fantasy since about 2019 because it was before 2020. I used to do it on Yahoo. I used to do season long and like weeklies or like kind of like dailies on Yahoo Fantasy a long time ago. Small stake stuff, dollar drafts, but it was pretty fun. Got into PGA best ball. I think it was 2023. I started doing what they called the Pup Cup, which was the FedEx Cup only playoff PGA best ball. They no longer have that format. They didn't host it last year. But then that segued into the Scramble and the Albatross. The Scramble is going to be all events from the Sony, which is the kickoff of the 2026 PGA season. Of course, we had the Century last year. There's no Century this year. It goes through the Open at Royal Birkdale this year. They don't count the alternate events, so you're not going to get points from Myrtle Beach or Punta Cana or some of the others. But these are all the events here. There's 4 legs, 7 events, 6 and 6, the majors, the 8 signature events, and a bunch of these opens like the Houston Open, Sony Open, for example. And then that's the whole season. You have to draft in advance according to these segments, these tournaments. So you want players who play in all these events. And no golfer is going to play in every event. So you have to stagger, guys who are in the signatures, the majors, and then the normie events or the non-signature events. The flip side, my dog's looking at me. The flip side of that is the Albatross. It's a majors only best ball. You only draft for the Masters, the PGA, the US Open, and the Open. And it's super fun. So each of those majors is its own advancing segment. It's one of my favorite best ball formats of all time. The Scramble's really grown on me because there's a lot of strategy involved with projecting schedules. But I just love the Albatross because that is truly draft the best golfers, draft the guys for the best of the majors. And that's where I've found the most success. So last year I struck out. I didn't have any finalist teams in the Albatross. I think I had 3 or 4 teams in the semifinals, and I didn't advance to the finals. Unfortunately, I just didn't have the right mix of guys at the US Open. Back in 2024, I had 3 teams in the finals for the Albatross. I took home 5th place, which was a nice little prize. And then I had a team that I think finished 30th and a team that finished, I don't know, let's just say in the top 100, maybe 80th or 90th. So super fun for me that year. Did really well. When I woke up on Sunday of the Open, I was sitting in 2nd place. And then about 5-10 minutes into tee times starting off, I was in 1st place. So I had a sweat on Sunday at the Open a couple seasons ago for the Albatross where I thought there's a chance I could block and potentially get 1st or 2nd. It's a long day. A lot of things change on the finishing Sunday, and players who had made the cut but didn't necessarily do that well for some reason post up like a 66 or go on a big birdie streak, and teams who had that golfer shoot up in the leaderboard, in the rankings, in the standings. And so I had like 2 or 3 teams that I had not expected to be able to pass me, that I thought I was covering with common shared golfers, that if those golfers score points, we'd both rise at the same rate. But then they were able to outpace. And I think the golfer, the drafter that still won was the guy that I was thinking would potentially get 1st and I would get 2nd. But there was a few guys who kind of got in between and separated. So that's majors only best ball. That typically opens, and we can ask TJ, but that typically opens once the Scramble has filled and you have until the Masters to draft it. So the Masters is going to be in April, if I'm not mistaken. I could pull up the schedule, but it's kind of like it's we can. I mean, look how many weeks ahead. It's going to be 13 weeks from now plus 1 week because the Sony's 1 week away. So 14 weeks from now, we should have a good 13 or 12 weeks to draft the Albatross. Potentially, maybe they open it up, later than that. But we should have plenty of weeks to draft the Albatross going into the Masters, and it's a pretty fun format. So I'm looking forward to that. D says he likes Oberg Ludwig a lot. Hey, Reckham Tech. Have drafted him at 100%, but he's my only 100% drafted. I'm trying to figure out who are some promising upcoming golfers that would be viable in this best ball format before I draft another one or two teams. Perfect, perfect timing. I mean, I know you asked this question a little while ago, and we've been ranting since then, but Darren had some good shouts here. We covered some of these guys: Hubbard, Kanaya, Kevin Roy, Cam Davis, Walker, Mao. William Mao is another good young up and comer. Bo Hostler. Some of the guys who've been shouting. I like Nico Echeverria. And these guys get drafted all the time, but Michael Thor Bjornsson. I kind of struggle to say his name, but I like Michael Brennan. I like Matt McCarty. Some names. My only thing I'll say, in any best ball format, it's very risky to have 100% exposure to any one player just because the injury risk, not just because that much more. It's just the injury risk. So if he gets hurt, misses some games, if he withdraws from a tournament, you're going to be super exposed to that injury, to that risk. So I think this is not the best honestly, personally, this is not the best format for Oberg. He's much better pick for the Albatross where he can shine in these majors only. The reason why is because Oberg doesn't play a ton of tournaments. I will say Underdog updated the scoring format from 2025 to 2026. They're rewarding golfers with finishing points, and they've slightly changed some of the other scoring metrics. So could this be a good year for Oberg? Could he be a guy you need? Potentially. He's not super overpriced. I think he's a little overpriced. Essentially, you can get a golfer like Harris English or even Russell Henley much later in the draft who have a very similar profile, not in real golf, but in terms of this format and what they offer: a signature event golfer, a majors golfer who doesn't play too many other events and is very good at making cuts, very good at top tens, very good at scoring birdies. So I'll say that. Some caution there, drafting too much Oberg. He can be a guy you need. I could see it working out. This isn't the perfect format for him, so there's some risk there. And then I just don't like being overexposed to injury for any one golfer. And also, the earlier you're drafting a player in any best ball format, the more risk averse you want to be with being overexposed because of that injury. And you want to make sure you have exposure to other players who go in that round. If you have 100% Oberg, that means you probably have no Spieth, no McIntyre, no Pendrith, and no Sam Stevens. What if those are the guys you need to win this? So make sure you spread it around a little bit. But if you have like a 10th, 11th, 12th round pick, you could be 50, 60% exposed to any one of those guys. You still run the injury risk, but the draft capital isn't so much that it would tank your team if that guy missed part of the season with injury or things like that. Oh, Darren says that guy skipped Scheffler at 1 also works for the Louisville, Kentucky PD. Yeah, shout out to the PD. That was so funny. And I wasn't a big fan of I wasn't a huge fan of Happy Gilmore 2. There's actually a screenshot from Happy Gilmore 1, which is one of my favorite sports movies of all time. But I thought Happy Gilmore 2, they needed to consult me on that as a creative director. I would have helped them a lot. Being a lifelong fan of Happy Gilmore and watching the first one probably 100 times as a kid because I had it on DVD. I could have helped them a lot with the second half of that story. First of all, we wouldn't have killed Virginia in it. We wouldn't have killed her off. Maybe she had other commitments creatively to do as an actor and couldn't have been there for all the filming, but we would have figured something else out. I didn't like how they killed her off. Secondly, I didn't like the whole extreme golf tournament that they were subjected to for the second half of the movie. I would have gone back to more of a classic approach similar to the first one. So creatively, they really should have consulted me there, but they didn't reach out, so that's their fault. But yeah, the whole point of bringing that up. I love the scene in there where Scotty's in jail, and I mean, it's just the fact that they got him to do that so funny. The fact they got Zalatoris to pretend to be the caddy from the original movie was hilarious too. Even though if you think too much about it, the age doesn't line up because Zalatoris would have been like 6 years old when the first Happy Gilmore was filmed, but don't think too much about it. Yeah, Kevin Roy's an interesting pick. I like that one. Real retail. That's a good shout. Yes, at the same time, Scheffler just needs to avoid the home cooking and the Kentucky PD, and he'll have a great 2026. Shout out to my boy Scotty Scheffler, my fellow Longhorn. Scotty Scheffler is one of the only athletes that when he's on the TV, my 3-year-old daughter can name him, and she knows. She goes, "That's Scotty Scheffler." She just looks. I don't know how she figures it out. Maybe he's just she can just kind of see. It's obvious what he looks like. He's always wearing the Nike. He's got a very steady look, but very proud dad moment that my daughter can name Scotty Scheffler when she sees him on screen. But at the same time, she'll see like a random other golfer and just be like, Scotty Scheffler. So we're working on it. I think this is true. This is true. You can still get through your pod without Scheffler. The problem is the regrouping of pods later in the tournament. You're going to find some Scheffler. So there's always going to be Schefflers in each of your pods in round 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is scary. The ultimate luck would be like the team who drafts Scheffler in the first round does something bad like that, and then you just avoid a Scheffler pod in round 2 and round 3. You get to the final, and then obviously there's 261 teams, so you can't technically avoid Scheffler, but yeah, Cam won major winner in 2026. Which major? The Masters, PGA, US Open? We'll find out. Yeah, Cam Young is sick. Fleetwood, yeah, Fleetwood is nice. Kanaya was a rookie last season. He's won a bunch of DP in Japan. I like that. Oberg, Thorbjornsen, Davis Ford. Yes, I read an article on I believe it was either Golf Digest or it was just a PGA.com on the top 26 golfers under 26. I think it was Golf Digest. But Davis Ford was on that list. He popped up. I've seen him get drafted more than none, but I have not clicked him yet. But he's an intriguing name. I honestly don't know with Ford. We'll scroll down to find him. I don't know how much he's going to play, but we can look into it a little bit. He might not be qualified for just everything unless there's some status that I'm not aware of, based on him being a rookie that gets him into more events. But, up and comer could be something very young. But at the same time, he's the same age as Akshay Bhatia, which is also interesting to think about. Yeah, Koiven, Jackson Koiven. I don't know. Me and Mike I think we talked about Koiven last night a little bit. Is he retaining his amateur status? Is he playing in college again this year? I think I saw he's more of a future watch list up and comer. I'm not 100% sure on that. I'm not fully versed on the Jackson Koiven trajectory. Okay, for this team, Ben Griffin and McIntyre. I can pretty much go any direction. I think I want to go Spieth. I'm very exposed to Spieth. I want to go Harry Hall though, or even Sam Stevens, just knowing what they mean in this format. So I'm going to go Harry Hall. Fingers crossed that he doesn't just skip a bunch of events because of his new signature status, but I think he was a guy you needed to have in 2025 in this format. So I'm going to follow that up. I'll take Harry Hall in the second round, so I like him in the third. Plenty. Are you guys seeing the light on Harry Hall? Have you figured this out yet? I mean, he was a killer down the stretch. He was a guy you had to have to win last season. He got hot. He was playing at the end of 2025 within a top 10 player, just making top 10s and everything. T6 at the Schwab, T9 at Travelers, pretty close to the 13, the Rocket 17 at the Genesis. So little hot streak in the beginning, little hot streak towards the end. I think Harry Hall can continue that. I think he's a good golfer. Killer putter, apparently. I have to think more about that. I feel like I always see him coming out of a bunker or something. But definitely we have not seen the best of him yet. He didn't even win on the tour last year, and he put up a ton of points in this format. So imagine if he starts to win a little bit. Or does he fade? Did we see his peak already and he's gonna fade back away a little bit? I don't know, but I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna draft a lot of Harry Hall. With Harry Hall, and we'll look at some of his data. Not that it's the end all be all, but 99th percentile in birdies per round, 92nd percentile in rounds played in 2025 among top 200 players on the PGA Tour, 94th percentile in cuts made, 86th percentile in top 10s. That's a lot of green. And he played a ton of events last year. He does have signature status this year, so he's a status change guy. What does that mean? Does he play less events? Probably. So got to be a little bit careful with that. Yeah, returning to Auburn. That's what I thought too, right? So even if he does play on the tour, it'll be like the second half. So maybe this is not the best format for him or not the best year for him for this. Fords could follow what Oberg was doing 2 years ago and Thor Bjornsson from last year. Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, maybe Ford is semi draftable. It's tough though. At some point, it's like, do you just take a veteran who's got more tour experience and is more of an easier schedule to figure out? Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm hoping that he plays a full schedule. I just don't want Harry Hall to like skip out on some of the events he did well in last season that are not the signature events. So like if I look down, he did really well at the Sony. He did well. He got cut at the Cog, but did fine at Texas Children's Houston Open. If we can turn that, if he can stay playing at the Schwab, pretty good at the Genesis. So as long as he's still playing those events. Oh, no way. Is that right? That's funny. I didn't know that about him. I know there's a few different groupings of places, or there's a few different places where groupings of golfers typically live. There's the Florida guys, there's the Texas guys, there's the Las Vegas slash California guys. Typically, you'll find a lot of the professionals living in the off season. There's some guys in Atlanta. I heard recently Sung J M living full time in Atlanta now. So that's just kind of another big city. Not a lot of golf out there in Atlanta for sure. All right, this team, it's another scramble. Here's the format: 56,000 people, and we're trying to get first for $50,000. Straka, Kim, McNeely through Thor Bjornsson. Let me go find that one and plug it into our schedule. Straka, Kim, McNeely, Connors, Nico, Thor Bjornsson. Yep. And then available, I mean, I'm going to go Novak almost certainly. Denny's fine. Kiefer's interesting and fun. I have another pick at 44. Probably one of those guys will still be there. I do have a lot of I have 4 signature event golfers so far. I kinda wanna go Novak, but he doesn't help me with the Canadian or the CJ or the John Deere. If instead I go with Denny or Kiefer here. Denny Denny does play the John Deere and the Scottish. It's pretty nice. He's not really in the majors though as much. I do need some Farmers and American Express. Maybe Denny will still be there. I'm projecting Kiefer to play a lot of these other events, potentially expecting him to play all of the open events that he can get into. So I'm gonna go. I think I'm just gonna throw in Novak. I think he projects for a lot of points in this format. I'll have to figure out CJ Cup. What is that? I'll have 5 picks left, and I'll have to have 4 out of 5 of them be CJ Cup guys. All of them be Canadian guys. That's kind of a red flag. Maybe I need to pivot off of Novak just for that reason. Ugh, because what are the odds I can get 5 straight Canadian guys? Although the Canadian's not a really that good of a tournament to focus on. I mean, I at least want to have 6 guys rostered in it, but it's not a very high scoring event. It's a pretty difficult course they're playing on. TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley. I'm torn. Because I need to cover Canadian, but I know Cantley doesn't play Canadian either. Do I bring up Fox? I got to go Novak here. He's fallen. He typically doesn't last this late. I do like Novak for his projection at all of the other events, but now I'm in a tough spot to fill out my Canadian CJ Cup combo. I'll make it work though. I'm gonna go ahead and take Novak here, and then I'll just have to figure it out. Let's see. Is Bryson X Anderson on auto draft? He's not. He didn't immediately make his next 2 picks, so we'll have to see what happens with that. But come back around, maybe take Kiefer or Fox, guys that I know are going to play the Canadian. I think Aaron Rye plays the Canadian too. This could be a good spot to take some more Aaron Rye, even though I have a bunch of Aaron Rye. I'm a little bit skeptical about having so much of them. I'm expecting him to play the Canadian Open, but I don't think he played it last year. He's a change in status. He's no longer a signature event golfer. What else we got? Another draft closing in the next hour. Another Sepp Straka team with JJ Spawn. Copy this one down. Oh, that was not the right spot. Straka, Kim, McNeely. Right there. Is Rory a viable second round pick this year? So I put out a little short on YouTube today that actually goes right into this question. And shout out to D for being here. If you're watching, if you're viewing on Twitter, make sure you click the link on my Twitter. Make sure you jump in here, get in the YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube. Help me get to 1,000 YouTube subs. Hit that like button. Come say what up in the chat. All that good stuff. But yeah, thanks for the question. In short, no, I don't think Rory's a viable round 2 pick. I think he's a viable round 3 or 4 pick. And it's tough. But what it really comes down to is he just doesn't play enough events. So let me focus here on Rory. Last year, he was 8th percentile on rounds played on the PGA Tour because he plays on the DP World Tour. He comes over to the United States after playing in Dubai. He's going to show up at just the signature events in the majors only. He played Houston last year, which is one of the only open events he played in. He also plays the Canadian, very international event. The Scottish is a dual tour event, also part of the DP World Tour, gets some points for that. So Rory, of course, he's one of the best golfers of all time. Love him. This is not a format for drafting the best golfers. This is a format for drafting golfers that can fill out your schedule and play a lot of these birdie fest. Rory's playing the toughest courses. with that don't necessarily have the lowest scores. I mean, guys who are winning the American Express are going to be 25, 30 under par. Guys who are winning the Masters are going to be almost even par, maybe 6, 8 under at best. So, depending on the year. So, Rory is a great finisher. He's a great at making cuts, great at making top tens, tons of birdies relative on the events that he's playing. Um, but he's tough for this format. I've made the mistake of overdrafting him at some points, but I think where he fits in, his ADP is currently between like 14 and around 14. I get Rory in a lot of my drafts in the end of the third round or beginning of the fourth round. And then strategically, you need to build your team around him to compensate for all the events he's not playing in. Maybe you get lucky. Rory had a sick year last year, and it didn't really matter for this format. He still couldn't put up enough points per round to make a difference to where he was going. But he was a first round pick last year, and that hurt all the teams that drafted him in the first round. Getting him in the third or the fourth round, I think you can compensate for it. Also, last year in this format, there's only 10 golfers drafted per team. Underdog increased the draft size to 12 golfers for this format for this year. So that helps also compensate for his lack of schedule. But yeah, great question, D. Good to see you, my friend. Hope you're having a great Monday. And thanks for the question. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into this one here. I'm up. It's a Straka Spawn Thor Bjornsson. It looks very similar to the one I just took a that we just took a pick on where we went with Novak. I think I saw it on there too. Thor Bjornsson. I think it's this one. Yep. Very similar start. So I went Sepp, Kim, McNeely, Connors, Echeverria, Thor Bjornsson, Novak. This one is Sepp, Spawn, Stevens, McNeely, Echeverria, Thor Bjornsson. Let's see what we can get into with this pick here. Batia, McCarthy, Kirk, Henley, Goddard, Kiefer, Sammy, McCarty. These are guys that I like. I need to figure out what do I really need though for this team. I'm doing decently well on the CJ Cup, the Deer. Oh, I have nothing in the Canadian, so that's yikes. I mean, I only have. I remember when I was drafting earlier for this team, and this was the mistake. I need to draft 6 players who are in the Canadian. So that's kind of a qualifying criteria for getting drafted for me in this for what's available. So McCarthy's essentially out. I don't think Batia plays the Canadian either. He might though, because he does like to play some international events. Nope. And Denny's out. Does Kirk play the Canadian? I think I expect him to this year because him losing signature status. Hard to know. Maybe he also plays the CJ Cup. He at least helps a lot in the first round. Can I risk it? Do I take Kirk on this one? I honestly don't know what to do. Let me look at Kirk one last time. Does he ever play the Canadian? Last year he didn't play it. 2024 he also had signature event status, I remember, so he probably wouldn't have played it, and he didn't. 2023 is when the schedule was kind of starting to come together. He also did not play it that year, but he also won that year, so maybe it wasn't as interesting for him. 2022, he played the Canadian Open. That was the last time before he had signature event status or was winning during the season on the tour. There's always a risk that if he wins on the tour this season, he skips the Canadian. He skipped the John Deere that year, or I don't even know if they had the John Deere on the schedule that year. I think they did. So there's a risk that he's playing one of the events, but not both. That's not great. I assume if he gets into the signature events, he'll play the Memorial and the Travelers. He probably gets into the US Open at that rate. He's skipping the Canadian at that point. So I guess I'll take him, but it's like a big So I have a hole in my roster for the Canadian Open. And if I go Chris Kirk, I'm really risking it there. I think I can do it though. Maybe, just maybe, a guy like Thor Bjornsson or Nico comes around and plays the Canadian where they haven't recently played it, but because Thor Bjornsson's still working on playing a bigger full-time schedule, and then Nico had signature event status last year, if I'm not mistaken. So that's probably why he didn't play the Canadian. But has he ever played it in his history either? Let's find out real quick. In his kind of short history of being a full-time guy, didn't play it last year, but he had signature event status. 2024, he did play the Canadian and got cut. So there's always a chance that he comes back and plays it. And copy out my Kirk to, what was it this time? This one? Yeah, Sep. Right there. I've got like more than a dozen slow drafts going right now. I've got less than 30 scrambles to go. I'll do a bunch of them fast from here on out. And I'm saving some for like the week before it closes. There's some strategy in that. I've got, let's see how many minutes are on this one. 8 hours. I think we'll save that for tomorrow. I'll hit that in the morning. Boom. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at FFB Garage. Get in here on the YouTube. Be subscribed. Come hang out in the chat. Ask your questions. We'll be doing PGA Best Ball Wednesdays all PGA season long, so you know where to find it. And also more NFL best ball content coming soon. I think I'm going to go live, not tomorrow night, but I'm going live Wednesday night with Hartman and with Who Hames. We did streams all in season long for NFL. We're going to do some NFL playoff best ball drafts on Wednesday night, so stay tuned for that. Check out that, and then I'll be back maybe Thursday, maybe Friday, maybe Saturday. Not sure which day exactly yet, but I'm going to come back on and we'll be drafting some fast PGA best ball drafts with you guys. And I'm going to have a guest come on too. So I'm cooking up some things, more to come. Thanks for being here. Good to see you all. Have a great week. Have a great rest of your Monday. And I'll catch y'all in another draft real soon. Peace out.